Okay.
So the first thing you guys are going to want to do in preparing to put your piece of clay on the wheel is I've found that it makes it really easy if you make something like a target or a bullseye. Um, and that gives you just like an exact area of where you want the piece to go. So once you have your circle and you kind of have your place you know you want to throw the clay, you slam it down and then you try and position the clay as close to the center as possible because that will make the next step a lot easier. So the next step is called centering, and it's when you get the clay a little bit wet and you make it go really, really fast. And the goal is to get all the clay to the center of the wheel. Because if it's not all in the center, then you're not going to be able to throw anything, and it'll be all loppy, all lopsided, and look kind of like that. So you want to get it as centered as possible. And you do that by taking your palm of your left or right hand, depending on whether you're right or left-handed. I'm right-handed, so I use my left hand. And I put my elbow on the inside of my leg and push with my leg and both hands to get it into the center. So it's pretty centered right now. So get it really nice looking. Flatten it down for the next step. The next step is when you put the hole in the center, and then you'll use that hole to widen it and make it into a bowl shape. So you can use either, 2 fingers, or if you're using a smaller piece of clay, you can use your thumb, and then you just push your finger in until you get to the bottom. But you don't want to go too deep, otherwise you'll punch right through and you'll have something that looks like, a garden pot, and you don't want that. You don't want all the water to fall out if you're carrying water in it. So, but on the flip side of that, you don't want it to be too deep. So to test the depth, you take a pin tool and you put your finger on it, and then you put it down into the bottom of the piece. And then you put your finger down to the bottom. And when you pull it out, you have a test of how deep the bottom is. And so you know that it's about 2 centimeters deep, and you want it to be about here. That's about how deep you want the bottom to be. So what I do is I put a little water in, I smooth out the bottom, and then I go a little bit deeper. And eventually you'll do it enough times that you can just kind of tell how deep it is, and you won't need to use the pin tool. So once you have your hole, you want to widen it and make it into something kind of resembling a donut. So now you have your donut shape. Now that you have the donut shape, you kind of want to slow everything down a little bit. You widen it out. Then this is where you start building the walls and making it a little bit taller. Try and get some more water out. There are a couple ways to do this. You can either have your hand, your left hand or right, on the outside of the pot, and then you can take your other hand and just push on the inside. You can see that's making it taller. Like that. And you can just go up. The other way to do it is called the butterfly effect. What you do is you lock your left and right thumbs together and you pull in a horizontal motion. But you do it while they're locked together, and that makes your hands really tight because they have to be really tight and really stable to do this. You pinch them, and then you pinch on both sides of the clay. You can see that it gets a little bit taller. And you just drag them up like that. And now you can do all sorts of things with it. Once you have a basic, cylinder shape, you can do stuff like make it smaller. You make it a little bit narrower, so you can see how it got smaller on the bottom. And that's by putting pressure on the outside, so you're pushing it in. The other thing you can do is if you put pressure on the inside, you can make it super wide. There you go. And that's a finished bowl. And then if you pull out all the excess water because you want the inside to be dry. So there's a lot of excess water in there. The last step that you want to do is you want to take a pointy wooden tool and trim the bottom. Because, and I'll show you why in this once I'm done. You want there to be a clean line on the bottom. Otherwise, you get pieces that look like something like this. You see how the edges aren't smooth? They're really rough and ragged. You don't want that because that just doesn't look like a good piece. You put that back, and that's why you trim, because when it dries, it'll just pop right off and it'll have a smooth circular line. So that's that. And then once you're done, you mark it with your name so you know who it belongs to on the bottom of the wheel. That's it.